All right, so here we go. So we're rolling.
Okay.
So everyone out there listening today, we have Allie Badger here. Allie, thank you so much for
Hey.
being here.
Thanks for
Did
having
I say
me.
your last name all right?
Yeah.
All right, I
Yeah.
feel like every episode I start with like, how do I say your last name? Because I don't want to like butcher it or I don't know. But yours is simple and
Pretty. Yeah. It's the animal badger. Mhm.
So why don't you start off and tell us a little bit about you? Who is Allie?
Okay. So I listened to a lot of your podcasts leading up to this, and I knew you were going to ask that, but it's still such like a daunting question, I feel like. So as you said, I'm Allie Badger. I am a mom of three beautiful kids. I'm a wife. I am a Christ follower, which is super important to me. I have tons of interests, which I have ADHD, so I'm always all over the place and um, just like exploring new things that pique my interest at the time. And, I love the outdoors. Lake George is like my favorite like place to be. So that's a little bit about me.
That's awesome. That sounds
Yeah.
very, from what I see from your pictures, you love the outdoors, right?
I do, yeah. I grew up on a farm, and so like being outside was always you were always outside.
Oh, wow.
And so and my family's very outdoorsy. We went camping a lot, stuff like that. So yeah, I just grew to love it.
That's
My kids love
awesome.
it, so that's great.
Yeah. I feel like it's so helpful to be outside with kids too. It just gets you out of the house and it's just the
Absolutely.
sun and yeah, it's fun. So
Yeah.
growing up, Allie, growing up on a farm, like what was that like for you? What was your childhood like?
Yeah. So my childhood was like a bittersweet childhood, to be honest. I had a lot of trauma growing up. My mom had me super young, um, with a man who she should never have been with, who um, was never in the picture, still is not in the picture. And growing up, she was a great mom. She, you know, just had a lot of her own struggles. She was an alcoholic and she just struggled a lot. And so I lived with her until I was about 11 or 12. And then I lived with her father, so my grandfather, in the farm.
Okay.
Um, as far as that went, that was amazing. He was so amazing. He is not your lovey, like, hug grandfather, but he was such showed his love in actions, which was great. And he, we had horses and he was super passionate about that. So he got us lessons and we went, riding all the time. And it was really a great experience. And I actually live in my house now.
No
So
way.
yeah. And so my kids get to experience that minus the horses, which is a bummer, but
Wait, so
they
you
get,
live on the farm that you grew up on?
yes.
Oh my
Correct.
gosh. So
Yes.
did he leave you the house or he still lives there with you guys?
So he passed away.
Oh.
He left it kind of to like a joint, like so he left it to his kids, my mom being one of them, but she passed away, and so yeah, so it's kind of left to me
Wow.
too. But my uncle is gracious enough to let us live in it. He has a house in Saratoga Lake, and so he was like, if y'all want to live here for a little bit until we figure out what we're doing, go
That's
ahead. And I was like,
amazing.
heck yeah,
Well, and it
yeah,
sounds like that place holds some really happy memories for you. Like you didn't
yeah.
live there with your mom, you lived there just with your grandfather.
Right. So yes, I lived there with my grandpa. I lived there with my mom when I was born. So she
Okay.
lived there. She was I think 19 when she had me. 19
Okay.
or um and so we lived there until I was about two-ish, four-ish. I was four. And then like 11 or 12 I moved back in
Okay. Now,
without her. Yeah.
were you able to maintain a relationship with your mom when you moved in with your grandfather?
Yeah, so we had a super rocky relationship, but also like a beautiful relationship as well. Now that she's passed, I see all of the places where I should have held more grace for her, to be honest.
Mm.
But our relationship, um, when it was good, was really good. And so I really hold on to those memories. And when I was pregnant with my daughter, Lainey, who's now 6, we became very close, and she was my rock for that short time that she was here when I had Lainey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did it take you, like, becoming a mom to kind of see those moments where you could have given her more grace? Did you feel like that after you became a mom?
Yes. The two things. One, when she passed away was a huge eye opener as to like, well, dang, maybe I should have done things a little differently. And like in the moment growing up
Yeah.
the way I did, you never know. Like, I'm not beating myself up about it
Yeah.
tremendously, but I see where I'm like, okay, well, you know, could have done that different.
Right.
But I mean, it is what it is. I
Yeah.
did what I did and stuff. But then becoming a mom is like so eye opening. And I was
Yeah.
so naive in general becoming a mom. Like, you don't know till you know.
Yeah, we all are. Yep.
Exactly. It's like, I look back and I'm like, Allie, what were you? I was like, oh my gosh, Kyle, my husband, we've been together forever. And he's like, Allie, like when we have kids, it's going to be hard. And I'm like, Kyle, no. Like we're just it's gonna be great. Like they just tag along and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're just
Yeah.
like you're just a parent with a little like it's fine.
Yep.
And like my gosh, like what was like I wasn't thinking, I guess.
Well, you don't know, right? Until you
Yeah,
know.
you
And
just
I mean, you're not alone, that's for sure. And it's so
yeah.
funny hearing people that are, kind of going into parenting right now and they're like, yeah, I want like 5 kids. And I'm like, well, maybe you should start with one and then like
And
talk to
then
me about it,
see. Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
like, no, 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 we're having that. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
whatever. Like,
Yeah, I've said 4 my entire life, and I have 3, and 3 is like 1,000 kids, and so everyone's like, "Are you gonna have your 4th?" I'm like, "Bro, I think I'm at my limit." Like
well,
4
Waylon's still really little, so you have
she
time.
is, and
Yeah.
she's like, yeah, she's wild.
She's so
Wi-
cute. So
Yeah,
cute. So, coming from your childhood and like, I mean, I think it's so amazing that you were still able to have that relationship with your mom. So, how did this like kind of pave the way for how you wanted to be a mom?
yeah. So to be honest, I probably did it a little bit backwards. I thought to myself all the things I didn't want to do that she did. So I started there and worked my way up. Um, I kind of like I don't know. I feel like I had a vision of myself as a mom, and then things obviously, like you said, you don't know till you know. And
Mm-hmm.
so once I became a mom, I was really working through all my trauma with my
Yeah.
own mother. And so with Lainey, she was born, and then a year and a half later, my mom passed unexpectedly.
Oh, wow.
And so that really, like, really affected my parenting. And, still to this day, like,
Yeah.
pros and cons to that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still evolving with all that stuff. And so I think, I don't know, I think I just, remind me of the question because now my
Like
train of
what
thought
you
is
took
running.
from, your relationship with your mom in your childhood and how you put it into how you wanted to parent. I think you said that you knew what you didn't want to do, which I think
Right.
is I don't think that's a bad place to start. I think that's really good.
Yeah. So I knew what I didn't want to do, but she did have a lot of good qualities. She was fun. Two people on this earth make me laugh so hard, and it was her and my husband. They're just funny people. And I would love to bring like more of her humor into being a mom.
Yeah.
Because when everyone tells me, and it's so true, she was just so funny. And she, even with all her faults, was just so loving too. And
Mm-hmm.
so, um, obviously, who doesn't want to be a loving mother?
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's like,
yeah, but still, I think
yeah,
that's like a great quality to.
yeah. And so, those are some things that I really love to incorporate into being a mom because
Yeah.
she did that for me, and that was really nice. And she was a great friend too. Like she was loyal and she had a lot of great qualities that I completely respect and try to do my best to be like that with,
Yeah.
what she
Yeah.
did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think those are great qualities. I think the fun one, it's hard, right? Like, I don't
Oh,
know about you, but I mean, life gets so serious and like with all the things you have to do and
Yes.
especially as they get older, all the activities, and you're just like go go go, and you forget the fun. It's like, all right, where's the fun in this, because this is the only life we get, right? Like, let's
Yeah,
make it fun and not so serious. I think that's a
exactly.
really hard one. I have to remind myself
All the
of the
time.
fun. Yeah, like, let me
Yes.
be playful, like, because really kids don't care about anything else. Like, they don't care about the stuff we buy them. They
No.
really just want you to get down and play with them and be like
Yeah.
present. Yeah.
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 So yeah, that's a big one. I am not always the best at it, but I try.
Well, I think even just bringing awareness to it, right? It's like we're not always going to be, on, and you can't always be
Right.
playful. Like, obviously, if serious stuff
Right.
happens, you can't, not going to
Right.
just write it off and make fun of it. But yeah, just like having those moments of playfulness. Like, I don't know about you, but like I find imaginative play really hard as an adult. But like
Yeah.
it's like Gray's favorite thing, and she's almost 9, and like if I ask her, okay, you get to pick what we play, and she'll pick this play, kangaroos, and it's so obnoxious and it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. I literally have to set a timer because I'm like, I can only handle so much of it. My husband hates it,
Right.
but it's like
Smart.
she's so happy because I'm pretending to be a kangaroo and I'm the mom, and I hate being the mom because I'm like, I'm the mom every day. Why am I still the mom? But anyway, it's so silly. We hop around our living room, we hop up and down the stairs. Our dog's the wolf. It's like literally ridiculous, but it's her favorite thing, and she remembers it. We've played it since she was like 2 years old. So like
Aw.
if your child is remembering you being like silly and fun, like you remember your mom, like
Right.
that's what I want to be, right?
Exactly. You want those memories. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, being raised by your grandfather, like what do you think was different from that, like than how you're raising your children now?
Yeah. Very different. He was like, I'm biased because he's my grandpa, right? But like he was the best, like the absolute best. And he was just such a rock, like such a solid, like amazing man who you like no matter what happened, you knew like grandpa is there.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because he was such like he had so many quirks too. Like he had OCD like tremendously, and um like his 1 minute phone calls, like just to be like, hey, what's going on, Alexandra? And it's like, oh, hi, grandpa. Like, what's going on? And, and like, all right, I got to go. Bye. And it's just like the craziest thing. But he was just amazing. And, but it's, yeah, I'm so different because with all of that, he was still very serious. He was a hard worker who always like was doing something. He was always in the barn. He was always in the garden, always like, he wasn't not around, but he wasn't around, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. And so I try really hard to be present with my kids. I try really hard to show them love and affection. It wasn't until I was like 22 or 23 that so recent, like he said I love you to me.
Oh
Like
my
he
gosh.
just wasn't, you know, he just wasn't like that. And so
Yeah.
I tell my kids probably an obnoxious amount that I love them
Yeah.
and hug them all the time or like tickle them and stuff like that. And so just different,
Yeah.
like he
Yeah.
was, the stability was there, which I loved. And I feel like I hope I'm doing that for my kids, but like the like nurturing, like,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
serious and very rigid on his routine and stuff like that. So I try really hard, like, to not
Yeah.
be so rigid.
Was that hard for you that he wasn't nurturing, or like were you old enough that it didn't matter as much, that you could kind of be okay
I
with it?
think, yeah. So I think because I came from a very traumatic household and a lot of things were happening, the stability at the time was just so important that I didn't really even think about like the nurturing sort of
Yeah.
thing. Um, and like I said, he showed his love in other ways. And I think because of my mom and me having to grow up so quickly, I think I realized that like instantly. Like
Right.
I knew he loved me. I knew he cared for me. And he showed that in so many ways. But I also knew like, all right, well, he's not gonna tell me that. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
kind of like just figure it out on your own, type thing. But he like
But he showed you in other ways, you said, right? Like he was,
Right,
right,
like,
giving you
I
a safe
like,
place to
I
live and taking
right,
care of
and
you.
yeah, so I knew, like, he loved me, but
Right.
he wasn't gonna say
Yeah.
like, say it,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
I mean, that's hard because I mean, I feel like sometimes different generations they just express love, differently. I don't remember my grandparents saying I love you all that much. I mean, my grandmother, yes, but not my grandfather's. Maybe it's just like that type of generation they weren't brought up like that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. Not that I'm like making an excuse or anything, but I mean,
Yeah,
obviously,
no,
at least he took great care of you.
he did,
And you
yeah.
felt it in other ways.
I did, yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
agree.
So were you a Jesus follower when you were younger, or when did your faith begin?
So, that is just like a whirlwind of a story, I guess, or more of a roller coaster, I would say, not a whirlwind. So as I mentioned, growing up, there was a lot of good and a lot of bad. And so my relationship with Jesus was up and down forever. Like until recently, until I got pregnant with my first daughter, I just had a very rocky relationship with Jesus. And I um had times where I didn't believe, and I had times where I was mad at God, like, what in the world are you doing?
Yeah.
And then I had times of like full faith, like, okay, this is, I believe in you, help me, like, get me through this, whatever. And then like more things would happen that weren't good. And I'd be like, okay, like, are
Yeah.
you real? Because why is this stuff happening? And so it wasn't until I had, well, not even had, when I got pregnant with Lainey, did I become like all in.
What changed?
So my husband brought up, like, maybe we should go to church and like maybe we should invite this into our lives. And I was very against it for a long time. And I also, which is so funny to me that I had such strong opinions before kids, I also grew up thinking like, if my kids ask me about a type of religion or if my kids say they want to go to church, absolutely. Like, I'm not going to hold that away, like, take that from them. But at the same time, I'm not introducing it to them, like, you know. Um, and so when he brought it up, he knew that's how I felt. And at that point, I did not have a good relationship with Jesus. And so I kind of was taken back a little bit.
Yeah.
But then I thought about it and I was like, you know what? What's the harm in trying
Yeah.
and seeing what this, could bring for us? And especially more than us, my daughter or our daughter.
Yeah.
And I was like, if this is a positive, then like clearly we should do it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how that started.
That's great. So,
Yeah.
was it like, did you get back into church and like it was a little bit easier for you to build a relationship, or did it take a long time?
I wouldn't say it took a long time, but we started going to the Fruitful Vine Church, which was it is led by Pastor Ernie, and he was very amazing. He was very helpful in teaching us about Jesus. He has such a love for the Lord, which is great, obviously, to see. Um, and he was very helpful at explaining things better. And so starting off, I was a little like, I don't know, like this is a lot. And, um, I just worship was a little bit different. And I love music and I was super into worship. And I'm like, well, I'm not raising my hands, like, And then it started like leading more and more. And I was like, all right. And then he came to our house and did Bible study. And he was just all in for us and really like was the light that we needed, I guess. And my husband was very encouraging. And so I was like, okay, I'm really starting to understand a little bit more and stuff. And then I think really what solidified it, which is so crazy, God works in such crazy ways. I just opened my Bible and I hadn't really read the Bible at all. And I just opened it up because where do you start? You know what I mean? Like if you've never started, where do you start? So I just open it and it's Job. And I just start reading the book of Job.
Yeah.
And it's all this bad that happened
Yeah.
to this man, and he still had such strong faith.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, dang, God, thank you for this like
Mhm.
moment, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I remember telling my husband, I'm like, so I read the book of Job today. And he was like, wait, I opened my Bible to
No
like
way.
you, and it just happened to be Job. And so I read the book of Job. And like that was like, okay, well, that's not a like
Yeah.
the Bible's big. You know what I mean? For
Yeah.
both of us to just open up to Job and read, like that was a sign to me, like, I'm here for you.
Mhm.
Bad things happen, bad things will happen, but like I'm still right here.
Yeah.
And so I was like, that's when it was like, all right, I'm in. Like I'm full in, no going back. Like this is it.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, the Book of Job is it's a good one.
Yeah.
That and like Genesis with like Abraham and like I mean there's a lot of trials and tribulations in the Bible, and you're right, like God is still always there. And I think you really do have to. I grew up in the church, and I really like, and then I stopped going for a long time, and then when we moved to New York we started going to Star Point. And the way they break it down and kind of put it in modern day terms of like kind of what's going on and really explain it, it's just very eye opening. Because, like I said, I've memorized the Bible, when I was a kid, all this stuff, and I didn't understand it, I don't think,
Right.
until now. And I think once you understand what's actually going on and like understand God, and Jesus, and it makes so much more sense, and you do realize that he's always there. And
Yeah.
it doesn't mean your life's going to be perfect. It just means that you always have a constant friend and supporter, and he will
Right.
come through with you. So, yeah, it is such a game changer for
Yeah.
sure, cuz I went years without going to church. And we talked about, I was like, my childhood was really great going to church, so like, should we bring Gray, should we not? And I'm
Yeah.
definitely glad that we did. And I do think it changes your whole family dynamic too, because you do
Yeah.
have Jesus in your life. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's like it you just want to be a better person. Like
Mm-hmm.
I thank God, like looking back at my childhood, um I could have turned out very different,
Mm-hmm.
like um I just could have turned out very different. And
Yeah.
I really praise God that he was with me and that I had the morals and ethics to not make bad choices when I could have.
Yeah.
That he was just by my side through it all. And, just like looking back, I always thought to myself, like, well, where is he? Like,
Mm.
this sucks. Where is he?
Yeah.
And then looking back, like I see all where he was.
Yeah.
But until you're like open to it, or I don't know, I guess until you have that moment, like you don't really
Yeah.
fully know.
Well, yeah, and I think you have to get to the other side, right? Because, like we said,
Yeah.
there's always going to be challenges, there's always going to be stressors or things happening. But it's like you really have to get to the other side and look back and be like, well, what was God trying to show me? What's the lesson here? Like,
Right.
where did I grow? And, like, because even when you're reading through Job and, like, all the stuff that he goes through, I mean, of course, like, his faith, God, like, he had like boils all over his body. If no one's read Job, definitely read it, because this guy's
Yeah.
basically dying, and he's still saying that he has complete faith that God is going to heal him and pull him through and save his family. And I think you just have to keep trusting, and it is so hard. I mean, I think we all have days where, not necessarily that we're angry with God, but we're like, all right, like, what's
Right.
going on? Because
Right.
life is hard, right? But I think being able to even just pray and talk and like read your Bible and read through those experiences that these people had, because that's what it is, right? It's stories of real
Right.
people. And if you understand that you're not alone, then it's so comforting, I guess is the right word, to just know like, okay, these people went through craziness, so my little situation
Yeah.
maybe isn't as so bad as like Abraham waiting till he was like 130 years old to have a child. So
Right.
it's very inspiring. I
It
mean, kind
is.
of just like how we're on here, like you're sharing your story to inspire others. Maybe it's not in a book, but it's still just as important.
Yeah. And so, it's funny because I in growth group through
Mm-hmm.
church, we were talking about like our faith journey and stuff like that a little bit. And I also think that God, like I said, I had such an up and down time,
Mm.
in times where I didn't believe. And I think God was testing me because, or giving me these things. And like, I failed every time. Like, trust me, lean on me.
Mm.
I'm here for you. And every time I was like, where are you? You're not
Yeah.
real. Like, what is happening? And then finally, like, again, my life's not perfect, but whose is?
Mhm.
And, but the second I was like, all right, I'm all in, things got
Mhm.
so much easier.
Yeah.
And like, I started processing my trauma more
Mhm.
and growing from it. And so I was like, okay, like maybe all this was one, to have strong faith, and two, to help others like
Mhm.
grow a relationship with Jesus and know like, yeah, bad things happen, but he's there.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I agree 100%. I also think that we're not perfect either, and
Yeah,
God always has mercy on us and forgives us. So I think, like, even, being like, well, you might not have believed in him then as strong as you do now, but you still knew he was there. And I think that's an evolution, right? Because, I mean, I feel
right.
like my faith is always growing.
Yeah.
It's not going to always be up here. It is kind of like an ebb and flow type of thing. Not that I don't believe in him, but, it's just depends on the
Yeah,
day, right? It depends what's going
absolutely.
on.
That's
And
why, exactly.
so,
Exactly.
yeah, I think just like, doing the best we can and trying to have that trust. But I think that does waver sometimes, and we just have to get right back on track and just, yeah, we're
Yeah,
not perfect. We're sinners,
exactly.
right? So, yeah, yeah,
Helps having little ones look up to you, and like
mm,
it helps having that
totally.
reminder. Like just looking at their faces, like I'm really working on like my reactiveness,
Mm,
especially with my son,
yeah,
because he's 4, right? He's a
mm,
little boy. He's active. He's wild. And so I could be very reactive and
yeah,
stuff, and he could get to me very quickly. And so sometimes I just like think back, and I'm like, okay, well, like look at how I'm acting, and like
mm,
I need to show the light of Jesus right now, and that's not it. So then I
yeah,
pause and like we talk it through, or sometimes I'll be like, okay, well, I'm sorry that I just yelled at you. Let's like take some time, and like, do you want to pray and stuff? And like he's been getting so into praying. It's the cutest thing I've ever
so
seen in my
cute.
life.
Yeah, so cute.
Yeah, like the way he said, oh, he's just so cute.
Yeah.
But it's just so helpful to like have their little faces when these things are going on. Like, all right, now I need to stop what I'm doing and
Yeah.
like show the light a little more, because I'm not doing that.
Yeah, because we're the example. But again, we can make
Right.
mistakes. And I think apologizing, that is like, has been a huge game changer, I know, as a parent for me. Because I feel like when I went into parenthood, I thought I was supposed to know everything. And if I messed up, I
Yeah.
gotta hide it type of thing. But like,
Yeah.
being able to admit that I was wrong or made a mistake, I think that for a child to hear that, that's going to in turn let them, not hold shame and, really just apologize for
Right.
things. But yeah, it is. I mean, having Jesus as an example too, like obviously we're never going to be perfect, but just I always use that with Gray, and I try not to push, Jesus on her. She obviously
Yeah.
goes to church and hears all about it. Because I mean, when I was a kid, I went to church like 4 days a week. It was like a lot. And I think that's why I kind of had that gap in between, because it was very forced on me.
Yes.
So I like it to be natural, and I like her to just see it, like you said, through example, through how I live my life, and like have her see Jesus through me, instead of it being like, kind of forced down her throat. We definitely like
Yeah.
pray a lot and talk about God, but I don't like it to be something that's forced, because I feel like, I don't know what type of person you are, but if something's forced on me, I immediately kind of repel it, and I just don't like it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. A lot of my family is religious and go to church, and we're Catholic now, more so like Christian Catholic, And I feel like it was very forced on me, and it was very like um like when you're going through hard times, sometimes, at least for me, I did not like when people are like, well, um whatever, I don't know, like God's with you or blah blah blah. Like
mm,
at the time, sure, like I needed to hear that, but like I wasn't ready to hear that, I guess.
yeah,
And so I was very much like, um you know you're not a strong person, you're very weak if you're just like pushing everything off onto God, and you can't take responsibility for
Mhm.
yourself, or like my mom never took responsibility for any of her actions,
Okay.
which drove me crazy. And maybe
Right.
that's why I apologize. I don't know, but like she never took responsibility. And they'd be like, well, just pray to God that, he would take away her drinking, or he would do this for her, or whatever. And in my head, I was so angry. And I'm
Mm.
like, stop. Like, she's got to do it. Like,
Yeah.
what are you telling me to pray? Like, no, she's got to, like, grow up. She's got to stop. And now looking back, I'm like, well, dang, that's an area where I could have had a little more grace, right?
Yeah.
For her and myself.
Well, I
Like,
think you're right in
but
some way. She does have to do it herself, but I
yeah,
guess you could
yeah.
pray that God could help support her
Give her
through
the
that and guide
strength, or like
her.
give her that, like, yeah.
Right.
Um, yeah, so I don't know. It was very like I didn't like how it was brought up to me
Yeah.
every time. And so it was like a very thing that I was like, oh, I
Yeah.
don't know about all that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I just think I mean, it's like anything, right? You have to be willing to do it, whether it's like you're trying to lose
Right.
weight, work out, whatever it is. Like, if you're not willing to do it, you can't force anything on anybody. And I think that's the
Right.
same when it comes to faith, too. You really have to find your own faith
Yeah.
and figure it
Agree.
out from there. Yeah, but
I think people
oh, go ahead.
I think people planting seeds is great. I think talking about it, or like sharing stories like this is good, because if you want to listen, you can. If you don't, you don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and people make up their own mind. Like, if it resonates with them, maybe they look a little deeper. If it doesn't, then it's just not their time. But at least they
Yeah.
have that seed there. Like, all right, well, this happened for her. Maybe it'll happen for me too.
Yeah. Yeah, but I also think like I mean you telling your story and like about your childhood, I mean if people are listening now and they went through the same thing, they can see how it helped you and like you
Yeah.
said you're the living example. I mean, what would you tell listeners out there that maybe have some childhood baggage? Like where would you start to kind of get through that?
Wow, that's a deep question. Thanks, Megan. Um, Let me think. I think I would just say, one, that it's okay. Like, it's
Mm,
okay that you have baggage. Everyone has baggage. And it's okay to be sad and upset and angry. Like, all those things are okay. Um, and as much as I hate hearing this to this day, I hate it. But it's so true. It's your choice. Like, it's
mm,
your choice to hang on to it or to move on.
yeah.
And I'm not saying it's easy, because it's not. It's so hard.
Yeah.
But you can make that decision to try. You
Mm,
can make the decision to pray, or read the Bible, or a self-help book, or listen to podcasts, whatever
mm,
it may be.
yeah.
But you just need to make that decision. Like, I'm not gonna be that. Like, I'm not
Mm,
gonna repeat what happened to me. And it's a process. I will say that it's a process, but just starting, just
yeah.
acknowledging is the first step for sure.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Nice answer, Allie.
You.
Are you okay with people contacting you if I put your like
Yeah.
Instagram in there or Facebook or whatever you want to link
Yeah.
below? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'll link that below in the show notes. But thank you so much for sharing because
Yeah.
I really think this will help so many people. Because I mean,
So,
I think you're right. We all have this baggage, like whether it's like severe or like really small, like we all bring stuff from our childhood and
yeah.
kind of have to face it at some
Yeah,
point.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll say, the last thing I'll say is, like, there's, even in the darkest of times, there is still joy. And like, there is so much to be thankful for. Even my mom's death, like, how sad is that my mom died, right? But like, there's still so much joy. I could look back and think of all the good things, and like, I could
Yeah.
think of the signs that she sends me and stuff like that, and just know, like, she made it to, like, she barely made it into heaven, right? Like, I don't she had belief, but I don't think she fully accepted Jesus, and
Mhm.
she was in a coma, and like, it was so bad. Like, she was not awake. And our pastor Ernie at the time, he went to the hospital and like prayed over her. She woke up, accepted Jesus, and then died. Like,
Oh my
so like,
God.
now I know she's in heaven. Like, so I could rejoice, like, knowing, like, okay, well,
You'll see her
that's
again.
awful,
Yeah.
but they're still good. And so I
Yeah.
just want people to know, like, just look for that, even if it's so small, just look for
Yeah.
that little bit of good in the bad.
Yeah. I love that. I feel like we can do that with everything in life, but especially
Yeah.
with our parents. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're
So
welcome.
great. Thank you
Thanks for
again for
having
coming
me.
on. Yeah. Thanks. And I really appreciate you and I will talk to you soon.
Okay. Thanks,
Thanks,
Megan.
Allie.
Bye.
Bye.